Hi everyone, this is Owen Taylor from True Love Seeds, and we're going to do a video on processing dry seeds or dry seed heads. So things like amaranth, we're actually going to have a shot in there of last year's processing, winnowing of this Vita Cypriot amaranth, lettuce, things in the mint family like basils and motherwort and so on. And others, and we kind of process all of those in a similar way. And so I'm going to attempt to take many different videos with overlapping information, different types of plants, and make one coherent dry seed processing video showing you how we thresh and winnow and dry and store these seed crops. So wish us luck. Hopefully you're about to see something that is helpful to you as you walk through your garden. This is our garden at my home in Philadelphia, or your farm, and start to figure out when seeds are ripe, how to harvest them, how to process them, and how to store them. All right, thanks so much for watching. This is our purple hyssop here with our yerba dulce plant. Anyway, the purple hyssop, there was a baby goldfinch in here eating, which made me realize it's definitely time. Another way to check for seed ripeness is to do this test with these dry seeded plants where you just slap it into your hand. And you can see that all of these nice brown ripe seeds came out from that one slap. So if the seeds are that ready to come out, it's time to harvest them. So we're going to cut the plants pretty low, below the lowest ready seed pod, because we noticed even these pale purpley ones seem to have some ripe seeds. And so we cut them, we put them right upside down in a bucket. And we're gonna let them ripen in here further for a while before we thresh them. But when it's time to thresh them, we'll hit them. And you can see a lot more seeds came out, but maybe after a few days or a week in here, a lot more seed will be ripe and ready to fall. So that's one of our methods for dry seed head harvests, and drying them down and extracting the seeds. Okay, quick note. While this video is mostly about plants with seed heads, where they're just filled with tons of seeds on a stalk, like where a flower was, beans, peas, the whole legume family, the mallow family like okra, malachia, so on. They have these individual pods usually, and they turn brown and crispy, and you can hear the crispy crackle, and that's when it's ready to pull that individual pod up. If it's a bush bean, you can take the whole plant up when they're this crispy or close to it and let them continue drying. But we're about to see some of the cabbage family plants, which are similar in that they have dry pods when you harvest them. But you'll see in the next video that we took some of our broccoli rabe pods a bit early on the entire plant so that they can dry down to this crispy state in our high tunnel. Normally, if we were in a dry, less humid climate, we'd let them stay on the plants until this stage instead. We've harvested our broccoli rabe stalks. Some of them are pretty green still, some are ripe and crispy, which is really where we want them to be. But we harvested them really low on the plant so that the life forces and juices will continue to ripen these less ripe pods. We're harvesting it now because about half the crop is crispy, and we need to rotate out that row for something else. And in this climate, one reason for harvesting early is if it rains, the pods will rot. Also, the birds are after them, and we just took our bird netting off to get the ripe ones. And so instead of sacrificing it all to the birds, we're gonna try our hand at letting it ripen out of the ground. And so just laying it on this table with all the seed pods above the fabric so that as they shatter, the seeds drop into the fabric, and then we can gather them. And I'm gonna keep the already shattered seeds separate. And then afterwards we'll cover these with RABE so that the birds don't come in and eat all the seeds like they want to. So that's it for this stage, but there's already so much ripe seed here just from a couple buckets for our broccoli rabe seed crop here. So we're gonna get a good amount of seed even just from what we're doing right now. So What you didn't see earlier is we harvested our lettuce plants. This is a lettuce plant at the base when well over half of the flowers had poofed out with all these what they call feathers. That's what these are called. And so at that point, you know, they ripen gradually, so you have to make a decision at some point when you're going to take the whole plant, because the ripe seeds will start to float away on the wind, or the birds will get them, or the rain will get them. And so we harvested these at the base so that they can continue ripening about a week ago, and laid them out in the high tunnel where there's air circulation, there's sun, which is safe for the seeds because they're enclosed in these seed pods and not exposed. And there's no rain, and we covered them with remay to keep the birds off. And so that's what happened before this point. And now that they're all crispy dry and they've ripened as much as they're going to ripen, we are going to use our special technique called whacking it in a bucket. And that's what we do with all of our dry seed-headed crops. And so often I'll do it with my hands, and I'll just have a bucket against my legs, and you can see the seeds want to come out. And I just whack it. Okay, so I'm going to illustrate our threshing method, which we call whack in a bucket, technically speaking. And so what we have is a broken stake, or a stick. We have a bucket that is dry, fairly clean. It's not that clean, but it's dry, which is important. There's nothing loose in here. I have already made sure that there's no dirt on the stick. It's really awful getting dirt mixed in with your dried seeds. And so when we harvested this motherwort, we waited until the seed heads were totally dry, the stems were brown, the seed heads were brown, and it's before the point where the wind and the birds have taken all the seeds from us. So timing is really important. And because it's so dry, we're gonna try to just thresh it right away. A lot of times when we harvest dry seeded crops like this, we will put them in the high tunnel or somewhere where it's not gonna get rained on. We'll do that for a couple days. But we're just gonna go for it and start processing them now, because they seem so nice and dry and mature. So here's a bundle. You can see seeds are already falling. Because motherwort has very spiky seed heads, I'm going to wear gloves in case I grab a seed head. So I'm going to wear gloves. I'm going to use this stick. A lot of times I like to whack dry seed heads with my hand, but that would mean that all of these seed heads would stick to my glove and it would be pointy. So you can use a stick, and I'll just kind of aim for the seed heads, and I'll know that the ripest, best seeds are going to fall first, generally. So usually I don't try to get every single seed out. I try to get out like 80–90% of the seed, so that any that are just like stubborn and staying in the inside of the seed head, which isn't really happening here, are not going to fall in and include unripe seed in our harvest. So this is what you have, and then, you know, we'll see at the bottom, this one didn't really get threshed. So after we put them all in here, maybe I'll spend some time, you know, using the butt of this stick, or my foot, or my hands, or we'll just dump this whole thing over a screen, and if it wasn't so spiky, like almost any other dry seed head, we'd just rub over a screen to help get the seeds out. This one I probably will do this a bunch, so that I'm not touching those spiky seed heads. You just want to do something to kind of explode all of the dried seed pods and get the seeds out.
We need to get our rhythms to speak to each other, like call each other.
Another way you could do it, if you're not worried about a lot of unripe seed getting in here, is actually go after it on a mesh screen like this. This has been so dried down from being in the seed room that I've already taken off all of the seed heads by those few rubs. And so basically our goal here, and this is za'atar, a type of thyme that's used in a za'atar spice mix, spice blend. Just rubbing off all of the seed heads. Again, we're just using the break of the screen to, I'm sure there's a technical word, but take off all of those seed heads and explode the seeds into the bucket.
Scrub-a-dub-dub, scrub-a-dub-dub, scrub-a-dub-dub. Look at those little babies.
Hi, baby.
Coming to you from Chulo's farm.
So the next stage is to separate all the big chunks of chaff, which is basically all the plant material we don't want, from the seeds. And so a lot of times I'll start with a bigger mesh, a bigger gauge mesh, to get out the sticks and the big chunks, and then get smaller and smaller. So let's try this one that we just made, this screen. When you have a bunch of sticks in it, sometimes it helps to just go back and forth versus rocking it a lot to keep the sticks on the surface. This is kind of a big, heavy thing to deal with. So let's look at and see what we have so far. You know, a lot of the seed heads are still coming through, but you can see a lot more seed now. You see, that's all seed. So I'll do a little more, but I think we've gotten most of our seed out because the gauge is so large. I'm gonna assume that we got most of the seed. What you can do to check is put your hand underneath. It's hard when it's this heavy, but what I see mostly is chaff. I see one seed. I can assume that it's mostly all come through. So I'm gonna put this in the compost. So now with this, I'm gonna find a smaller gauge screen. I think this one works very well. You basically go to thrift stores and yard sales and the kitchen and get as many versions of these sieves as you can find, because even the smallest difference in the gauge will make it appropriate for a very specific seed. And I think this one will be hopefully pretty good for this motherware. And look, it has a handy little extender. I think I got this at a Vietnamese grocery store in South Philly. And then I'll do this, and the seeds are coming out. See, I didn't put it all in at once because that can be overwhelming. And then again, I'm gonna put my hand under. I see one seed and a bunch of other stuff, a bunch of chaff. So I'll just put my hand under and check. One seed, a bunch of chaff. So I'm gonna dump this because it's done. So putting your hand under is a really important trick. Sometimes you can winnow and sift at the same time. I think you can see the lightest weight chaff is coming out while I sift over the bucket. I'm gonna put my hand down now and you see it's full of seeds. So I'm just gonna keep going until I find that most of the seeds have fallen out. See, hardly anything else is coming out now. So, compost and a bunch of seeds.
Wow.
And we'll finish it up and then show the winnowing process.
Sorry, I missed.
Okay, so we have sifted out most of the big chunky chaff, and we're left with seeds and small bits of dusty chaff. And so we're going to use the fans of this high tunnel to help with the winnowing process. You could do it without fans on a windy day. It doesn't take much wind to do this, but the fans make it go quicker. And basically, I'm going to throw this seed in the air and the dusty chaff will blow away. And what I try to do is throw this seed over here. I'm like throwing it towards myself, really trying hard to capture every bit of it, not lose the seeds. And then I'll turn it every now and then. It just helps for some reason. So here we go. see the chaff flowing off. The beginning is the easiest part, because all the lightweight chaff comes right off.
Punished.
So again, here's a better view of what's happening. Throw the seed material and chaff kind of back towards yourself gently and kind of keep it on your side of the tray or the winnowing basket or bowl. And the lightweight chaff will move away from you if you're doing it right towards the lip and into the wind. One way to help it, is to move the tray clockwise or counterclockwise every now and then so that you can kind of access a new portion of the seeds and chaff and get more of that dusty chaff out towards the edge of the tray. Keep rotating. All right. Throw it back. And you see the chaff there? Mm-hmm. And just get that off. And then rotate and do it again. Okay, so after we winnowed it off, it's called winnowing, when we use the wind or the fan or your breath to winnow off the lightweight dust. It's almost entirely heavy seed and then some more chunky chaff, which we'll try to get out by using a strainer again. This one's slightly smaller than the last one that we used. And so I'm gonna start with a little bit of it just to demonstrate. And when you're doing your final sift, a lot of times it helps to do very subtle back and forth motions to prevent any sticks, etc., from tipping on their side and going through. However, there might be some seeds that are too big for this strainer, which are usually the best seeds when they're that big. So we may want to go back to our other strainer. This is doing a great job of getting rid of some of the big chaff, but it's doing too good of a job, thank you, because it's keeping some of the best seeds out. So again, I'm going to go back and forth gently, and then I stop. There may be a few seeds left in there, but the more I shake it, the more the chaff's going to come through. So I sacrifice a small amount of seeds to get rid of the chunky chaff. And you can see this is almost entirely seeds. It's pretty much good enough. We'll do for home use, this is great. This is like all you need to do. For selling the seeds, we'll put it through our DIY seed cleaning aspirator, which is powered by a shop vac, to set it to take off some more of this chaff and the lightest weight seed that's remaining. And then we'll store it in a jar with a screw top lid in the basement after we've let it dry down a little more in a pretty dry basement, and we'll label it and plant it next year. Thank you so much for watching our video. Thank you also to the whole team at True Love Seeds for making this video possible and everything that we do possible. Check out trueloveseeds.com on any of the product pages for seed keeping instructions for those varieties and species. All right, take care.